Knowledge. Chapter. To be quiet and listen to religious learned men. Hadith 121. Narrated Jarir. The Prophet said to me during Hajjat al-Wida, "Let the people keep quiet and listen." Then he said, addressing the people, "Do not become infidels, revert to disbelief after me by striking the necks, cutting the throats of one another, killing each other." Chapter. When a religious learned man is asked, "Who is the most learned person?" it is better for him to attribute or entrust absolute knowledge to Allah and to say, "Allah is the most learned than anybody else." Hadith 122. Narrated Sa'id bin Jubair. I said to Ibn Abbas, Nawfal Bakali claims that Moses, the companion of Qadir, was not the Moses of Bani Israel, but he was another Moses. Ibn Abbas remarked that the enemy of Allah Nawf was a liar. Narrated Ubay bin Kabi. The Prophet said, once the Prophet Moses stood up and addressed Bani Israel. He was asked, "Who is the most learned man amongst the people?" He said, "I am the most learned." Allah admonished Moses, as he did not attribute absolute knowledge to him Allah. So Allah inspired to him, "At the junction of the two seas, there is a slave amongst my slaves who is more learned than you." Moses said, "O my Lord, how can I meet him?" Allah said, "Take a fish in a large basket and proceed, and you will find him at the place where you will lose the fish." So Moses set out along with his servant boy, Yusha bin Nun, and carried a fish in a large basket till they reached a rock, where they laid their heads. I lay down and slept. The fish came out of the basket, and it took its way into the sea, as in a tunnel. So it was an amazing thing for both Moses and his servant boy. They proceeded for the rest of that night and the following day. When the day broke, Moses said to his servant boy, "Bring us our early meal. No doubt, we have suffered much fatigue in this journey." Moses did not get tired till he passed the place about which he was told. There the servant boy told Moses, "Do you remember when we betook ourselves to the rock? I indeed forgot the fish." Moses remarked, "That is what we have been seeking." So they went back, retracing their footsteps, till they reached the rock. There they saw a man covered with the garment or covering himself with his own garment. Moses greeted him. Al-Qadir replied, saying, "How do people greet each other in your land?" Moses said, "I am Moses." He asked, "The Moses of Bani Israel?" Moses replied in the affirmative, and added, "May I follow you, so that you teach me of that knowledge which you have been taught?" Al-Qadir replied, "Verily, you will not be able to remain patient with me, O Moses. I have some of the knowledge of Allah which He has taught me, and which you do not know, while you have some knowledge which Allah has taught you which I do not know." Moses said, "Allah willing, you will find me patient, and I will disobey no order of yours." So both of them set out walking along the seashore, as they did not have a boat. In the meantime, boat passed by them, and they requested the crew of the boat to take them on board. The crew recognized Al-Qadir and took them on board without fare. Then a sparrow came and stood on the edge of the boat and dipped its beak once or twice in the sea. Al-Qadir said, "O Moses, my knowledge and your knowledge have not decreased Allah's knowledge, except as much as this sparrow has decreased the water of the sea with its beak." Al-Qadir went to one of the planks of the boat and plucked it out. Moses said, "These people gave us a free lift, but you have broken their boat and scuttled it so as to drown its people." Al-Qadir replied, "Didn't I tell you that you will not be able to remain patient with me?" Moses said, "Call me not to account for what I forgot." The first excuse of Moses was that he had forgotten. Then they proceeded further, and found a boy playing with other boys. Al-Qadir took hold of the boy's head from the top, and plucked it out with his hands. "I killed him." Moses said, "Have you killed an innocent soul who has killed none?" Al-Qadir replied, "Did I not tell you that you cannot remain patient with me?" Then they both proceeded, till, when they came to the people of a town, they asked them for food, but they refused to entertain them. Then they found there a wall on the point of collapsing. Al-Qadir repaired it with his own hands. Moses said, "If you had wished, surely you could have taken wages for it." Al-Qadir replied, "This is the parting between you and me." The Prophet added, "May Allah be merciful to Moses. Would that he could have been more patient to learn more about his story with Al-Qadir." Chapter. Whosoever, while standing, asked a religious learned man who was sitting on a pulpit or a similar thing, about something. Hadith 123. Narrated Abu Musa. A man came to the Prophet and asked, "O Allah's Messenger, what kind of fighting is in Allah's cause?" I ask this, for some of us fight because of being enraged and angry, and some for the sake of his pride and haughtiness. The Prophet raised his head as the questioner was standing and said, "He who fights so that Allah's word Islam should be superior, then he fights in Allah's cause." Chapter. To ask about a religious matter and to give a religious verdict at Mina during Hajj while doing the Rami of Jamar, throwing of pebbles at the Jamar in Mina during Hajj. Hadith 124. Narrated Abdullah bin Amr. I saw the Prophet near the Jamrah and the people were asking him questions about religious problems. A man asked, "O Allah's Messenger, I have slaughtered the hadi animal before doing the Rami." The Prophet replied, "Do the Rami now, and there is no harm." Another person asked, "O Allah's Messenger, I got my head shaved before slaughtering the animal." The Prophet replied, "Do the slaughtering now, and there is no harm." So on that day, when the Prophet was asked about anything as regards the ceremonies of Hajj performed before or after its due time, his reply was, "Do it now, and there is no harm." Chapter. The statement of Allah Ta'ala, "And of knowledge you mankind have been given only a little." Hadith 125. Narrated Abdullah. While I was going with the Prophet through the ruins of Medina, and he was reclining on a date palm leaf stalk, some Jews passed by. Some of them said to the others, "Ask him the Prophet about the Spirit." Some of them said that they should not ask him that question, as he might give a reply which would displease them. But some of them insisted on asking. And so one of them stood up and asked, "O Abul Qasim, what is the Spirit?" The Prophet remained quiet. I thought he was being inspired divinely, so I stayed till that state of the Prophet while being inspired was over. The Prophet then said, "And they ask you, O Muhammad, concerning the Spirit, say, the Spirit its knowledge is with my Lord. And of knowledge you mankind have been given only a little." 1785. Chapter. Whosoever left some optional things simply for the fear that some people may not be able to understand them and may fall into something more difficult. Hadith 126. Narrated Aswad ibn Az-Zubair said to me, "Aisha used to tell you secretly a number of things." "What did she tell you about the Kaaba?" I replied, "She told me that once the Prophet said, 'O Aisha, had not your people been still close to the pre-Islamic period of ignorance infidelity, I would have dismantled the Kaaba and would have made two doors in it, one for entrance and the other for exit.'" Later on Ibn az-Zubair did the same. Chapter. Whoever selected some people to teach them religious knowledge, preferring them over others for fear that the others may not understand it. Hadith 127. Narrated Abu at-Tufail. The above-mentioned statement is of Ali. Hadith 128. Narrated Anas bin Malik. Once Mu'ad was along with Allah's Messenger as a companion rider. Allah's Messenger said, "O Mu'ad bin Jair." Mu'ad replied, "Labaik and Sa'daik, O Allah's Messenger." Again the Prophet said, "O Mu'ad." Mu'ad said thrice, "Labaik and Sa'daik, O Allah's Messenger." Allah's Messenger said, "There is none who testifies sincerely that none has the right to be worshipped but Allah, and Muhammad is his apostle, except that Allah will save him from the hellfire." Mu'ad said, "O Allah's Messenger, should I not inform the people about it so that they may have glad tidings?" He replied, "When the people hear about it, they will solely depend on it." Then Mu'ad narrated the above-mentioned hadith just before his death, being afraid of committing sin by not telling the knowledge. Hadith 129. Narrated Anas. I was informed that the Prophet had said to Mu'ad, "Whosoever will meet Allah without associating anything in worship with him, will go to paradise." Mu'ad asked the Prophet, "Should I not inform the people of this good news?" The Prophet replied, "No, I am afraid, lest they should depend upon it absolutely." Chapter. What is said as regards to be shy al-haya while learning religious knowledge. Hadith 130. Narrated Salama. Sulaim came to Allah's Messenger and said, "Verily, Allah is not shy of telling you the truth. Is it necessary for a woman to take a bath after she has a wet dream, nocturnal sexual discharge?" The Prophet replied, Yes. If she notices a discharge. Salama. Then covered her face and asked, "O Allah's Messenger, does a woman get a discharge?" He replied, "Yes. Let your right hand be in dust," an Arabic expression you say to a person when you contradict his statement, meaning, you will not achieve goodness, and that is why the son resembles his mother. Hadith 131. Narrated Abdullah bin Omar. Once Allah's Messenger said, "Amongst the trees, there is a tree, the leaves of which do not fall, and is like a Muslim. Tell me the name of that tree." Everybody started thinking about the trees of the desert areas, and I thought of the date palm tree, but felt shy to answer. The others asked, "O Allah's Apostle, inform us of it." He replied, "It is the date palm tree." I told my father what had come to my mind, and on that he said, "Had you said it, I would have preferred it to such and such a thing that I might possess." Chapter: Whosoever felt shy to ask something, and then requested another person to ask on his behalf. Hadith 132. Narrated Ali. I used to get the emotional urethral discharge frequently, so I requested Al-Miqdad to ask the Prophet about it. Al-Miqdad asked him and he replied, "One has to perform ablution after it." See Hadith number 269. Chapter: Teaching religious knowledge and giving religious verdicts in a masjid. Hadith 133. Narrated Nafi. Abdullah bin Omar said, "A man got up in the mosque and said, 'O Allah's Messenger, at which place you order us that we should assume the ihram?' Allah's Messenger replied, 'The residents of Medina should assure the ihram from Dil Hulayfa, the people of Syria from Al-Jufa, and the people of Najd from Karn.'" Ibn Omar further said, "The people considered that Allah's Messenger had also said, 'The residents of Yemen should assume ihram from Yalamlam.'" Ibn Omar used to say, "I do not remember whether Allah's Messenger had said the last statement or not." Chapter: Whosoever answered the questioner more than what was asked. Hadith 134. Narrated Ibn Omar. A man asked the Prophet, "What kinds of clothes should a Muhrim, a Muslim intending to perform Umrah or Hajj, wear?" He replied, "He should not wear a shirt, a turban, trousers, a head cloak or garment scented with saffron or wars kinds of perfumes. And if he has no slippers, then he can use cuff socks made from thick fabric or leather, but the socks should be cut short so as to make the ankles bare."